Hello, our fine people. I hope the year 2025 started well, and we are back to provide some content to help people in different areas or fields to do their research. So today I want to talk a little bit about conducting research or the research process. I am using my phone, so I'll not have the luxury of using a fancy camera that will enable me to record and share my screen. Nevertheless, I'll try to give the best I can within the shortest time possible, and then in the subsequent catch-ups we can see how to make this better. So feel free to engage me within the comment section if you can. Now, I want to talk about the research process. I'll be scribbling some notes and then I can share with those who will be interested. I always realize some people always have interest in such kind of work. So the research process. So generally the research and when looking at research, I always I have this strong opinion that everybody is a researcher in their minor way or in their big way before you call yourself an expert in research. For instance, if you take an example of gossip, it's like finding some information about a friend or someone and then passing the information to someone. You are doing a research in a layman's way. Anyway, that was on a light note. Now, look at research, let's say a scientific research, whether it's for your market research. As a company, you want to see, either you want to introduce a new product, you want to, let's say you want to advance what you already have, you want to understand your new market segments, because if you've been in business for some time, probably you know your current market, and then if you introduce a new product or if you make some improvements, then you just want to see if that can get more clients or more customers. And market research, a scientific market research, can be appropriate in that instance. So that is, let's say, in the private sector setting. In the not-for-profit or NGO world, we're doing different kind of researches all the time. Sometimes they come with different namings, but it's just the same process. For instance, if you're doing a baseline survey to understand an innovation, an intervention, an intervention that you want to introduce, or you've just introduced, and then you already want to establish how many people are going to be reached, which objectives should we address before you come to the mid-term evaluation, the outcome evaluation, and the impact evaluation. It's basically the research process. If you don't look at it as a research process, then you need to start looking at it as a scientific research process and get the right people to support that if you don't have the internal capacity. Now, so we've talked about, let's say, market research in the private sector or in business, and then we have evaluation in the NGO world or not for profit. This is also happening in government programs. If the government is committed to addressing the problems of its citizenry, then they are following that process. Of course, sometimes these things are happening just for formality to ensure that we met people, we did stakeholder engagement. But if the government commits to doing a scientific process in establishing what are people saying, it's not just the interests of the few politicians, but what the public thinks should be done, then that process should be followed. And then we have the academic, of course, and that tends to be the foundation of everything else. The academic, you start learning research. Let's say when you are given a task to go and research on a specific topic, write an essay, 5 pages, explaining about, let's say, typhoid prevalence in a specific country or county or state. So you go find reliable information from scientific sources or reliable scientific platforms, scientific papers, research articles. You look at government publications, reliable organizations like the World Health Organization, United Nations, name them. You can't go to find blogs on some platforms, let's say on social media, to cite as evidence of trying to understand what is happening with the prevalence of typhoid in a specific region. So it's only appropriate to find reliable information from reliable sources. Now, so we have the academic angle. So the academic tends to be the foundation of everything else. If you don't have a strong foundation in writing scientific work, then everything else starts to be a little bit challenging. Probably might need to engage an expert. But good thing is our institutions try to inculcate this in everybody who goes through the academic world. So I'll try to address both in my presentation. The nice thing is the process tends to be, if you look at it in a nutshell, it's the same process, just given different titles, different naming, different phrasing, but the process entirely or mostly the same, with some few variations. Probably the report you write will have a different structure, depending on, is it market research, is it an evaluation report, is it an academic research thesis, as an example. So first of all, research. Why do we do research? Around us every day we have problems. Problems is like part of human life, and that's where research starts from. If you take an example of let's say road carnage, traffic accidents. Traffic accidents happen because there is a gap somewhere. It could be the training of the drivers is not good, the condition of the vehicles is not good, the condition of the roads is not good, the traffic police officers, the overseeing body, like in our case the NTSA, Kenya National Highway Authority, and such. So there could be gaps, and it creates this problem of road carnage. So that is a problem. And then from all those aspects I have highlighted, you want to find out what could be causing this road carnage specifically, or from a wider from what is the main cause. Of course, each one of them could be a contributing factor, but what is the main cause of this road carnage? So yes, the other ones will be highlighted, but we want to establish the root cause, and then or the main contributor, and then we start to address from that before we can go to the other minor contributing factors. So you have your problem, you're trying to put it together, what you call in let's say in academic world, conceptualizing your problem. You're trying to put it together in a way that can be understood. in a way that can be researched. So your problem would be the road carnage. What are the contributing factors to road carnage? So once you've defined that properly, defining these can be a little bit tricky. So you need to really start, let's say, with your expertise in that area. If you are an expert in engineering, let's say you want to look at the design of roads. If you are a security or you work in some of these overseas regulatory agencies or bodies, parastatals, then you have the knowledge already from just doing that work. So you start to conceptualize the problem from there. If, let's say, I am recruited to do that research, I am not an expert in designing of roads, in training of drivers. I'm not an expert. So what do? I need to engage with the experts in that area. So the goal is to understand the problem beyond the assumptions, beyond the personal opinions, and that starts to form a scientific research. So let's explore this road carnage in detail. So road carnage, we want to see what are the contributing factors to road carnage, or what are the main contributing factors to road carnage. And this could definitely be an evaluation project. So we define it like that, and then that is just trying to put the problem together. Now we need to write it down. I always say to be a researcher or to be an expert in research, by default you have to be a good writer, because you need to communicate what you researched, the process, the findings. So that simply means you need to establish yourself properly in the writing industry, or the writing itself. You can train yourself for that. Probably you can have some other session on how to write good scientific work. So in the academic world, we will define this problem using we will put this problem together considering very specific factors. For instance, has another research been done, or have other researches been done? I don't know if research has a plural, but has research already been done in this on this specific problem? So we are exploring that scientific research, not some blogs, the way I've said, not some written news articles. So it's a scientific work done. So once we've found the scientific work that has been done, it is always appropriate to find the most recent, so that you have more updated information. It can't make sense to let's say you're researching on road carnage on main highways in Nairobi, yet you are looking at articles or work done in 2000, because between 2000 and 2025 there is just so much that has changed within this transport industry. Let's say new highways have been built. For those who live in Nairobi, let's say we have Thika Superhighway, we have Expressway, which was just done recently, not more than 10 years ago, not more than 5 years ago. We have dual carriages everywhere, which were not there initially more than 15 years ago. So you want to make sure your research will be very updated with the current events. If you want to look at road designs as contributing factors, then a road design that was done in 2000 probably doesn't make sense anymore. So that is the scientific work that has been done. So if those scientific work have already been done recently, then you're finding out what are the gaps, or what did they mention that they were lacking, or limitations of their studies. What were the gaps? Did they can mention what they did and the gaps they had that prevented them from getting comprehensive results explaining the problem. So it could be they have explained that they could have used a wrong methodology. So methodology is another big thing that I'll take or we shall take some time talking about it, because methodology, you need to understand, let's say, the statistical component of research. We have different methodologies that you can use, and the methodology need to align with the kind of research you're doing. You can't, let's say, you can't be doing a research on roads, yet your methodology suggests that testing of some testing need to be done in a lab. It doesn't make sense. So that one, at that point, then you need a very appropriate methodology, and it has to be supported by, of course, scientific information. Let's say if you want to interview some people, how many are you choosing to interview? Should I choose 10? Should I choose 200? Should I choose 384? What is the right number? Should I sample 1,000? What is the right number of people to interview? If there is filling questionnaire, the same question, how many people will be enough? Enough in a case that once I've interviewed 10, any additional information, or once the 10 have filled a questionnaire, then no, let me use a case of interviews. Once 10 have provided expert information about the contributing factors to road carnage, then additional information doesn't add new knowledge. Additional interviews doesn't provide new information about this specific problem. New information. So we've exhausted sort of. So that is the methodology bit that needs to be very well done, very well prepared. And methodology prepares you for the analysis. I've seen some researchers, people write, they define the problem, they develop their methodology, and they subcontract or contract someone else to do the analysis. So you're just given data, and then you're told you need to analyze this. Of course, we are an expert in that, but if it was not defined properly, the methodology was not clear, some key elements like how many people you interviewed, which questions did you ask, how did you ask them, what was the format of the responses, it creates a big problem in terms of what we need to analyze. In the academic world, this becomes even big problem. Your professors will ask you, do for us a regression analysis, yet all your questions are yes and no, yes and no. In terms of responses, it can be done. It cannot be done at all. You might end up faking your results, which is unethical, of course, and it's like lying to yourself, which is not good. You don't want to get there. Now, in the NGO world or in government, if you fake the results, even the private sector, if you fake the results, then what is happening is you will not be able to understand, you'll not solve the problem. It will still be there. This is why people ask, why is it that so many researches are done and the problem remains there? Sometimes it's the research was not done well. Sometimes it's the people who need to implement the recommendations are not interested. So let's come back to the research process. Now, we were defining our problem. I was trying to mention we have look at the scientific work that has already been done, look at the gaps that existed, and that's the point where I started to mention about methodology. Was it the most appropriate? Beyond that, now we look at some statistics. Statistics help you to quantify the problem. Let's say, according to the research that has been done by the National Transport Services, or NTSA, and National Transport Authority, they have found that 3,000 people die every year. I'm using that as an example. I'm not saying it's the case, but it could be around there. 3,000 people die on Kenyan roads every year. So you're quantifying the problem, and people want to see that. It starts to make more sense if we've quantified the problem in that manner. Let's say 3,000 people are dying, a minimum, or at least, because some of these numbers are not recorded. Maybe an accident occurred in some village road and no one reported if it was resulted in death or a permanent injury. Then it just went on unrecorded, so it misses on the records or in the system on the final numbers. Nevertheless, I'm trying to quantify the problem. At least 3,000 people are dying on Kenyan roads every day, every month, or every year. And specific interventions have already been introduced. And these, of course, you're quoting from reliable sources. Like there was introduction of alcohol blow, there was introduction of speed bumps, but the problem is still there. Okay? So you are quantifying the problem, looking at what has already been done, but there is still that problem. And we're saying probably there is something that we've not discovered. Probably the training of the drivers has been enhanced. They now need to go for regular tests, road tests, or NTSA tests. But the problem is not going away. Still the same number. We're not saying after these interventions were introduced, it came from 3,000 to at least 1,000. No, probably it's going up. The road designs have been evaluated and they're meeting the standards. But the problem is still there. I'm emphasizing on the problem is still there because it's the problem that you're looking into. If problems did not exist, then we will not need those researchers. So we've put in some statistics to quantify the problem, and then we're saying if this problem is not addressed, I hope even those who are doing their thesis can follow along. We've looked at scientific work, gaps, statistics, and then we're saying if this problem is not addressed, what are the implications? Implications of not addressing the problem. Probably we have people who are contributing to the economy are dying from accidents. We are having a more sad country because people are losing their loved ones. It's a big problem to the economy, of course. You're losing productive population. And then overall, it's a problem that is contributing to both social, economic, financial problems. People are living with disabilities from accidents. The productivity goes down. People are becoming paralyzed. They can no longer contribute to the society in a positive way. They become a burden. They become a health burden. So we have the economics of health. It's becoming a health burden. Specific conditions are not necessarily emerging, but the public health problem is now overwhelming the state or the country or the county, depending on who is managing it. People are becoming more impoverished because we have to pay bills from treating our loved ones and all those. Children are can't go to school anymore because the people who used to to take care of their schoolwork and funding their studies, they are incapacitated. So you are conceptualizing the problem and making sense out of it. Why we need that research? They say that is the government, the health, it could be a health research. It could be an academic research you're looking at. And then if you're defining a problem properly, in a good way, for instance, if we were seeking for funding to do this research, then if we are explaining and putting our problem together in such a manner, it's very clear that we can actually secure the funding. So what are the implications of not addressing this problem? All that within the conceptualization of your problem. And in fact, this is always the first. If you are doing a writing of the research work, it comes somewhere. Let's say in the scientific world, this could be like a statement of the problem or problem statement. It comes after you've done your introduction, your background, so it comes after you've already done your title, your background, you've introduced the problem. But basically in the thought process, it is the first thing that you look into. So this simply means within defining a problem, you will do lots of reading, you will try to find reliable statistics, you'll try to understand what does a research gap mean. We can talk about what does it mean, a research gap. And then you can also do lots of research reading on what does it mean on if this problem is not addressed. So that is conceptualization of your problem. So once you've done that, now you start to be more specific. So after you've done all the reading, all the reading from scientific work that has already been done, and you're looking at let's say publications done by reliable sources or authorities, then you've established let's say the main, because you can't research on everything. You want to look at the specific objectives to research into. For instance, we want to look at the contribution of driver behavior. Driver behavior, you've identified that it could be through, let's say, talking with experts, through your research process, through reading scientific work, you've established that driver behavior could be, this is just an assumption, it could be a big problem. At this phase, at this level of your work, it is an assumption, sort of. It's not conclusive until you do the research. We want to look at, let's say, road design as a contributing factor. So you are listing down your key objectives. Let's say road design, and then we have, let's say, so we have driver behavior, road design. We could also have weather conditions. Driver behavior, here we could have issues like drunk driving or drink driving, driving when you're tired, fatigued, driving at night when the vision is low, when you are sleepy. So these ones will come up later in the scientific what we call it, listing that down before you can now the point where no new interviews. Let's say corruption, and this could be a big problem, of course, that bad behavior is being allowed on the road just with some few cents or coins, that you can drive unroadworthy vehicles and you corrupt your way every day. So we're breaking down that problem. So that forms it forms the component that will, let's say, be your research objectives. It will become your key themes, they will be your themes when you're doing the analysis. They'll be your themes when you're doing the conclusion, the recommendations. They'll be based on these factors, so they need to be chosen very carefully. If it's in the real world problem away from the academic angle, then you want to make sure that you're very specific, very careful, considering the specific factors, that you are not just taking any factors and then you end up doing a research that doesn't help so much. It doesn't have an optimal impact. So let's list around 4 or 5 of them like that. You can't have so many of them, a maximum of 5 in the academic world. And also from my experience with even the NGO world, because I've done lots of research in the NGO world, they tend to be 3, 4, 5 maximum. Beyond that, then you'll end up writing a book. That's something you don't want to do in a scientific research. It needs to address a problem. So we've listed down our objectives. So once we've listed down our objectives, we need to develop some questions that what we call research questions. So these research questions will help us now to investigate these specific objectives we've developed. Let's say the contribution of driver behavior to road carnage, to find out how does road design contribute to road carnage. So now your research question definitely will just emerge from these research objectives. They don't need to be something different. Specific objectives where you develop your research questions. So how does driver behavior contribute to road carnage? Right on point. What is the role of, or how does road carnage or road design contribute to traffic accidents? How are weather conditions contributing to road carnage within a specific scope, let's say country or state or town or city? And how is corruption a contributing factor? Those questions need to be done grammatically well, of course, not being not just using same phrases which might end up to be boring. Even though research work, sometimes it's boring. In terms of how we write, is not meant to be visually appealing in terms of photographs, videos, but we are communicating a scientific problem. Be done introducing your problem. Let me get your feedback in the comment section, or you can reach out directly through our channels, social media channels, our official email, hello@studyresearchanalytics.com, info@studyanalytics.com, or my personal, elias@studyresearch.com. We see if we can help you to design this process. So I have sort of introduced the research itself. The next phase in my videos will be how do we go further to put together a methodology. What do we mean by methodology? Then once we're done with that, we can look into other aspects. For instance, when you're doing a methodology, you're thinking about your analysis. Very careful, you have to be with that. If you miss that, then everything else, this is like a very important part. Methodology has to be done well, has to be done keeping in mind what you need to analyze. Let me take an example, although I see my time is almost up. If you take an example of you want to find out how these factors contribute to road carnage, then you could think of a regression model We shall talk about those technical terms sometime later. But if I think about a regression model, it means when I'm designing my questionnaire or when I'm developing my methodology, it needs to keep in mind that I'll need continuous variables. By continuous variable is there are multiple or many options that we shall define it in a better way, but there are multiple options within a specific limit. For instance, between 0 and 1, you could have multiple or many options, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. It's an endless game that forms a continuous variable. But if your response is yes or no, it is discrete. It is yes or no. You can't belong somewhere in between. Let's take an example of a continuous variable, age. Age, you could be 1 year old, you could be 6 months old, you could be 30 years old, you could be 30 years, 5 days old, you could be 30 years, 5 days old, and 1 hour old. Hope that makes sense. So all of us could be 30 years, but within that, we were born at a different time of that day. We were born at a different minute. Could be within the same hour, but I was delivered at minute 30 and then you were delivered at minute 37. So it is an infinite number of possibilities within a specific limit. So that forms a continuous variable. So what I was trying to say is we start to think about this already when you're doing a methodology. You don't wait during analysis when we're doing the thought process of what do I need for a regression or a cross tabulation, where I'm trying to establish some association of factors. How does driver behavior associate with broad carnage? So these need to be thought through way before the data collection starts. During questionnaire design, you should have these ideas in mind, that you're developing a questionnaire that will ask the questions in the right way possible. Let's continue from there when we catch up next time. And if you need any technical assistance, we are here to help you. See you next time. Thank you so much.